as they call it in Washington, D.C. If that weren't enough, every single one of America's president's own bloodline can be traced to the royal lineages of France, Scotland, and England, and wherever else the Merovingian bloodline has traveled, which then paints a picture that the United States of America is no more its own sovereign entity than a mere British Masonic proxy, controlling global events for the usurped Cainite Windsor Crown of England. All 45 presidents, of which there have actually been only 44 since they counted Grover Cleveland twice, he being the 22nd and 24th president of the U.S. So all of America's former reigning presidents, from George Washington on all the way up to, yes, Donald Trump. I said Donald Trump. You shocked? Have all had bloodline connections to all of the Merovingian kings and queens of Scotland and Britain. You say, Donald Trump is not a royal blood. You're mistaken. Because here are the facts. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the two so-called choices of the American people, in the last election, they had to lead them, are related to one John of Gaunt, a 14th century royal. Gaunt, who was the first Duke of Lancaster, the son of King Edward III. Donald Trump is related through his mother, Mary Ann MacLeod, back to the 17th century great-grandfather John Beaufort, while Hillary Clinton is related through her father and the Rodham family back to her 17th great-grandmother, Joan Beaufort. Donald Trump traces his lineage back to John Beaufort. Hillary Clinton can trace hers back to the 17th century Joan Beaufort. So what I'm telling you is, the two candidates that ran against one another in the 2016 U.S. presidential election are 19th cousins removed. Related. But did you ever hear that fact on the Illuminati-controlled mass media? Because neither the Clintons nor the Trump clans ever commented on that fact. And the Illuminati-controlled mass media did not comment on that fact. The Duke of Lancaster, by the way, had the Beaufort children through his third wife, Catherine Swynford. Swynford, you see, had been the mistress, but later married what they two have in common, Trump and Clinton, John of Gaunt. His son by his first wife was none other than King Henry IV. Where'd you get that space? Burke's Peerage. If you do the looking, Burke's Peerage, one of the most respected bloodline documenters of all time, and British. If Burke's Peerage says it, it's real. And I'm not sure if you're too new of a listener to AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640. For all 5 of elections now in America, I correctly forecast the winner. Not predicted, forecast. Because I've always used the rule of thumb. The one with the most royal blood in their veins wins the election. This last one with Trump and Clinton also had a little bit of the male versus female. where the woman rules for the first 6 months of the year now and gives up to the man who is less tolerant, a little more pushy in the second half of the year, beginning in the fall, with the fall equinox. Now, if the Illuminati are as cunning as the world is now beginning to see, is it possible that they have set up the perfect chess game? Just like I've said earlier, describing how they are set up perfectly to control both sides of the Brexit negotiations. The control, the British side, comes from the Masons and the British government, and they also control the EU side of things too. They have an insurgent on both sides. So, as in the Brexit talks or the Jewish-Palestinian peace deal, it doesn't matter to them who wins. Either one will carry out the agenda. Are you beginning to understand all of this a little more clearly now? Are you beginning to wake up to the matrix we're all living in yet? This information, as I said, comes from Burke's Peerage, which is the Bible of aristocratic genealogy, based in London. Every presidential election in America since, and including George Washington in 1789, to Donald Trump has been won by the candidate with the most British and French royal genes. As a matter of fact, of the 45 presidents up to Bill Clinton, 33 have been related to just two people: Alfred the Great, King of England, and Charlemagne, the most famous monarch of all of France. And it goes on. 19 of the presidents are related to England's Edward III, who has 2,000 blood connections to Prince Charles. The same goes with the banking families in America. Former President George W. Bush and his First Lady Barbara Bush are actually from the same bloodline. It's the Pierce bloodline, which they're both from, which changed its name from Percy to Pierce. Then it crossed the Atlantic. Percy is one of the most aristocratic families in Britain to this day. They were, in fact, involved in the gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament at the time of Guy Fawkes. Take, for instance, George W. Bush, the Skull and Bonesman. That organization is still in charge now, by the way, Skull and Bones, with the member Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State now to Donald Trump. More on the Bonesman when I return on Talk Radio, AM 640. It's the Spaceman. I'm the guy to call a Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Just going through some of the lineage, showing you of all 45 presidents, and actually there's only 44, because Grover Cleveland counted twice, but all of them related to the British or French royal families. I brought up George W. Bush. Now, the reason I brought up George W. is because he's the one to have most recently tried to attain the Merovingian coveted goal of the creation of a 7-year peace covenant with Israel and Palestine. The two-state solution, as it's called today. The same 7-year treaty which the future British Antichrist later confirms and breaks halfway through the 7-year pact, which culminates as the trigger for the third and final World War. Now today, Jared Kushner, the investor, real estate developer, newspaper publisher, senior advisor to President Donald Trump and his son-in-law, married to Ivanka, is trying again. He also happens to be family of these royal bloodlines. That's why they marry into one another, to keep the money from flowing to other alien families, so to speak. Keep it in the family. Marry your cousin. So Jared Kushner is over there to try and do it again. Put together the 7-year pact between Israel and the Palestinians. He's over there in the Middle East as I speak to you tonight now, attempting to try it again. This ultra-important goal of a false peace deal that will eventually be a false peace deal between the Palestinians and the Jews. It's integral to the Illuminati's plan of global domination. The Jews are integral to the elite's plan. That heralds this Earth's final global conflagration when they sign the peace deal. Remember, the plan of what's known as the Great Work has always been to cause 3 world wars, if you followed this show, to make us all be complicit into accepting a one world government. This one world government, one people, one king, one religion, is known to the Illuminati as the Golden Age of Atlantis returned, which they are determined to bring back. It's now become very obvious that all of the bloodline-connected presidents in American history have all subjugated themselves to and have fallen right in line with the idea of this continuing plan. The very fact that such insolent men like George W., who's the 13th cousin of Queen Elizabeth II, can even attain such heights of power, all but proves the hidden connections going on behind the scenes. Another glaring example of this plan is that these monarchical connected so-called kings that are called presidents are temporarily known as the most powerful man in the world during their tenures in office, because they represent by lineage and archetype that coming and final most powerful one, the one whom they call the One. The one who is the purest bloodline member of the Merovingian descendants of the bloodline of Cain, who will become the Antichrist. Because you see, like the Antichrist, the U.S. presidents must also be a member of the European royal bloodlines that can be traced back to the ancient Merovingian kings of the Satanic Holy Grail. That's why I keep saying on AVFS, on Talk Radio AM 640, that American presidents are not elected as presidents. They're born to be. Through the centuries, these bloodline families have played major roles in their involvement with the greatest conspiracy ever perpetrated on mankind, fueled by the belief that there is a royal lineage, and it's theirs, that goes all the way back to Jesus Christ himself, the house of David, when it's actually Cain. And that's their divine right to rule the world because of that. Or so they are inherently deceived to believe, conjuring up and carrying out global manifest destiny. The Illuminati-controlled mass media constantly mentions this special relationship, I've talked about it recently quite often, that Great Britain has with the United States. Well, the ruling bloodline is that special relationship. Once more, America is still a British colony. It always has been. If you want to check history, you'll find the proof. It's there for all to see, except it's well buried, of course, in what's known as legalese, the complicated language of the rule of law. This goes back to the very founding of America. The actual governmental and judicial systems within the U.S., at both federal and local state levels, is owned by the Crown, which is a private foreign power. Before jumping to conclusions about the Queen of England or the royal families of Britain owning the U.S., this is a different crown. This establishes the Templar Church, which has been in existence for centuries and is known by the world as the Crown. The Temple Church was built by the Knights Templar, of course, in two parts, the round and the chancel. The round church was consecrated in 1185 and modeled after the circular church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. The chancel, built in 1240. The Temple Church serves both the inner and middle temples and is located between Fleet Street in London, England, and Victoria Embankment at the Thames River. The grounds also houses the Crown offices at Crown Office Row. This Temple Church, if you like to call it that, they do, is outside any canonical jurisdiction. The master of the temple is appointed and takes his place by sealed patent, non-public, without induction or institution. Quite secretive. All licensed bar attorneys in the U.S., lawyers, owe their allegiance and give their solemn oath in pledge to the Crown Temple. Realizing this or not, this is simply due to the fact that all bar associations, legal outfits, located in the inns of the court in the Crown Temple, which are physically located at Chancery Lane behind Fleet Street in London, in the square mile, although they may vehemently deny all bar associations in the U.S., such as the American Bar Association, the Florida Bar, the California Bar Association, were all franchises to the Crown. So I mention quite often that there are, in fact, two cities called London. Each even has its own mayor. Yeah, there's two mayors of London. One is called the City of London, also known as the Square Mile, where the business is, where the Templars Church is, whose mayor today is Andrew Parmley. It used to be Boris Johnson, who is now very high up in the British government. The City of London, the business section, is a small area within Greater London. It's the historic core of London, which the rest of the city grew around and has held city status since time immemorial. The City of London's boundaries, created before even all of the bridges were built, have remained almost totally unchanged since the Middle Ages, and it is now only a tiny part of the metropolis known as London or Greater London. The city is today a major business and financial center. It rules the world, controls all the stock exchanges, ranking above New York City as the leading center of global finance easily. Throughout the 19th century, the city served as the world's primary business center. It continues to be a major meeting point for businesses to this very day. The City of London is in fact at the top of the worldwide centers of commerce. The real power in the world, also located there in the City of London, the worldwide centers of commerce. It's the legal apparatus. It forms a major component of the western side of the City of London. These are where the Inns of Court are located, especially in the Temple and Chancery Lane areas, of which two powerhouses are situated. They're known as the Inner Temple and the Middle Temple, both within the City of London's boundaries. The four Inns of Court to the Crown Temple use the banking and judicial system of London, a sovereign and independent territory which is not part of Great Britain at all, just as Washington City in D.C., as it's called, named back in the 1800s, is not part of the North American states, nor is it a state to defraud, coerce, and manipulate the American people. These Fleet Street bankers and lawyers are committing crimes in America under the guise and color of law. They're known collectively as just the Crown. Their lawyers are actually Templar bar attorneys, not lawyers. All bar association licensed attorneys must keep their terms of their oath to the Crown in order to be accepted, or they don't get in. They're not called to the bar, as they say. It's Spaceman. It's Talk Radio. AM 640. I've got more, and it's coming right up.